Om Namo Bhagavate Ramakrishnaya. Om. Salutations to Bhagavan Ramakrishna. Ram Chandra Datta. We look at this unique life of one of the principal devotees of Sri Ramakrishna. He was also a fiery evangelist, spreading the cause and the message of Sri Ramakrishna. He was one of the first, of course. He also wrote the first biography of Sri Ramakrishna. He was imbued with that faith and that devotion, like all evangelists are. He never started off like that. But certain experiences in his life convinced him that Sri Ramakrishna was something unique, astounding. I mean, it was beyond the ken of ordinary people. But because he has associated himself with Sri Ramakrishna, his convictions about Sri Ramakrishna grew till they reached a point where he was openly declaring him to be an avatar, even when Sri Ramakrishna was alive. Many devotees, they thought his attitude was extreme. And they said, he used to say, anybody who has seen Sri Ramakrishna, even seen him, is blessed. So other devotees are saying, oh yeah, we don't have to worry. All those, even the coachmen and the people on the streets and temples and all, they have seen Sri Ramakrishna. And so, that's, so what? Saying, your life will be blessed if you go and take the dust of their feet. Go. He was firmly convinced those who have even seen Sri Ramakrishna, their life was blessed. From one standpoint, yeah, it makes sense to see somebody, even unknowingly. There is some tremendous residue of, you can say, merit. Or, they say, a God-man is not born every other day. And to see somebody like Sri Ramakrishna, that has taken a lot of merit. So, Ramchandra Datta, we know that he was also instrumental in bringing Swami Vivekananda to Sri Ramakrishna. They happened to be cousins. They happened to be living in the same neighborhood. Ramchandra Datta was, of course, elder. So he was born on October 30, 1851 in Calcutta. His father was Nrsimha Prasad Datta and his mother Tulsimani. But his mother died when he was about 2.5 years old. And later on, his father had remarried. That created that conflict. But since his younger age, he was, of course, brought up by the other women in the family. He grew up and he was devoted to Krishna. Now, Krishna is a universal God. A few days ago, we had his birthday called Janmashtami. And he was devoted and he used to pray and gather all his friends also and sing songs together, as well as, can say, distribute prasad, etc. Religion had become more of a kind of a celebration. So he grew up in that, can say, atmosphere. To give you an idea of his kind of character, his steadfastness, he was a strict vegetarian and he remained a strict vegetarian all his life. So one time he had gone to his relative's house, some 25 miles from Calcutta. He was 10 years old. And the relative, knowing that he is a strict vegetarian, wanted to serve him some non-vegetarian food. And he became so furious. He left the house, and knowing that it's going to be difficult to return. He's 10. He stalked out of that house, and then he came to the railway station, and fortunately some generous person booked his ticket to return. That was his, you can say, steadfastness. He was not easily swayed by as I say, other people's persuasion or social mores or something. He kept himself steady on this path. That was one of his chief characteristics, and we see that all through his life. So Ram's father remarried, and he couldn't get along well with his stepmother, and then his family faced financial difficulties, and after some time they even had to sell their ancestral property. They bought a small house, but Chandra Datta, he continued his education with diligence. He couldn't get along well, of course. He continued his education, and he became one of the chemist member of the Chemist Association of England, because he had discovered an indigenous plant, the juice of which was used in blood dysentery. So he was an assistant also to the government quinine, can say, examiner. So he was a chemist, and he also taught at the Campbell Medical College. He studied there, and the government, that's the British government, had let him lecture, teach students, military cadets students at the Campbell Medical School. So he was that kind of diligent, hardworking, can say, chemist. Sri Ramakrishna used to call him doctor. Of course, there's a huge difference between a chemist or a pharmacist. Now we will call them pharmacists. And so, and all his kind of devotion and steadfastness were now centered into science and medical knowledge, and he became an avid, you can say, learner and a teacher. And this kept him so occupied with science and all this thing. He said, oh, science is what is real and nothing else. And so as a result, he grew in knowledge in his profession, and he was successful. So he became a deeply materialistic person. And at times, we need to go sometimes through this phase also to see what it is like. People say, oh, this guy was, when he was young, he was devoted to Krishna, and he used to play games and this, and then suddenly it can, that is also required. So belief in God, he was, at that time, a raging atheist, and he used to defeat most of the arguments put for God against him. So, and that gave him great satisfaction. But this lasted for about 4-5 years, when sometimes even the greatest of materialists are struck with the reality of the world. And in this case, his daughter died. She was young. And that was something he wasn't prepared. Even the hardest hearts will kind of quake when it is asked this question: what is life? And what is death? So this death of his daughter troubled him. tremendously. And that shock had kind of made him restless. He used to go up on the roof and watch the lights of Calcutta. And clouds used to come and pass. And say, what is the nature of this world? And what is the nature of life? And what is death? Is there a God? Now this question this became more like a kind of a burning passion. Then began the quest. When you have something like this, is there a God? And if there is, then what is the nature of God? And if there is no God, well, let's see if there is no God. So this thing kept on burning in day and night. He became so restless. So he went around to different religions and different religious leaders seeking answers for this. And this also happens in people's lives. We come to a point where we seek out people who know their traditions, religious traditions or whatever, and want to find out. But mostly, this exercise, though it happens in many cases, it becomes fruitless. Finally, you have to depend on your own self and you get your own answers. You may get inputs from there, but this leaves you even more confused. So this is what happens. So in India, we have these families. They are joined to other families, the families of gurus. They are gurus. So hereditary gurus. The hereditary guru had come to initiate him. That was a tradition. And the guru came and, I'll initiate you. I doubt that there is a God. Okay, gods or gods, whatever. So I'm not interested. So can you tell me, is there a God and the way to realize him? The guru kept quiet. He did not know what to say. He left. And this great, you can say, burning quest left this. What happens is, in many cases, in our cases, we go through life and then there's a period in our life that is difficult and we want to know some things which is beyond the ken of ordinary human understanding. But then after some time, that desire to know something higher becomes tepid. And then everything becomes lukewarm and everything dissipated. And then we are back to square one. In some cases, that thirst to know keeps on increasing. The more you struggle, the more you do not know, the more the fire rages. And this is what happened in Chandra Datta's life. So he studied many books, he went to people, met people, debated, discussed, and finally ended up with the Brahma Samaj, with the Keshav Chandra Sens. These were the worshippers of the formless God. They had distilled a lot of philosophy from different books and traditions and religions, and they had formed a kind of a small movement. It was more like a social movement. So they used to have temples and services. Chandra Datta kept on attending these. That, to a certain extent, allayed his, you can say, quest for God. So one time, it was through Keshav Chandra Sen, because he used to write and speak about Sri Ramakrishna. So on November 13, 1879, Ram went to Dakshineshwar by boat with another, you can say, a cousin that we have seen his life, Manmohan Mitra, and another friend. So as soon as the boat reached Dakshineshwar and they found the door shut, and they were these babus, the educated class, they waited outside. Generally in India, you'll knock and you enter. And if the door is closed, okay. So they knocked and waited, and then Sri Ramakrishna himself came and opened the door. And noticed him, just an ordinary looking person. He expected him to be wearing this colored clothes, ochre clothes, and all the trappings of a monk. So you're the ordinary looking person. And he was looked so simple. The Ramakrishna asked him, saying, "Oh, sit down." And then, Sri Ramakrishna, some of his, greetings to the people, he used to wish other people or welcome other people. He used to say Narayana. That is a traditional way of, addressing people, welcoming Narayana. Narayana is the name of God. Nara is a human being. Ayana is the goal. So God, who is the goal of human beings. So that's the idea. So Hriday, his nephew, whom Swami Avikarananda has discussed his life, was feeling feverish. So he pointed to Ram. "You're a doctor, isn't it? Just see if Hriday has got fever." So he was now in for a surprise. So after examining Hriday, Ram said, "No, he's not feverish, he's okay." And then generally Sri Ramakrishna never used to inquire about anybody's personal life. In this case, he made an exception for Ram, saying, yeah, of course, he made exceptions for other special devotees, but he kept on inquiring about what was he doing and who lived with him, etc., home, business, etc. And then, as we've seen his characteristics of boldness, straightforwardness, he asked Sri Ramakrishna, "Does God exist? How can one see God?" Now, this is a universal question. The question that everybody asks or will ask at one time in their life. There are some who will persist. There are some who will not persist. But this is a typical question. Does God exist? How can one see God? And Sri Ramakrishna replies, God really exists. Then he explains, you do not see any stars during the day, but that does not mean that the stars do not exist. There is butter in milk, but can anyone know it merely by sight? In order to get the butter, you must churn the milk in a cool place before sunrise. If you want to catch a fish in a pond, you have to learn the art of fishing from those who know it. And then you must sit patiently with a fishing rod, throwing the line into the water. Gradually, the fish will grab your bait. Then, as soon as the float sinks, you can pull the fish to the shore. Similarly, you cannot realize God by a mere wish. Have faith in the instructions of a holy man. Make your mind like a fishing rod and your prana, the life force, like a hook. Your devotion and japa are like the bait. Eventually, you will be blessed by the vision of God. Here is the universal question, and here is the universal answer. There cannot be a better answer. Is there a God? Yeah. Can I see him? Yeah, sure, you can see him. Do this. So people think you can see God with these eyes or this mind. Oh, the mind has to be purified. The body has to be purified. Your life force has to be purified. For that, one needs to undergo certain spiritual disciplines. And this is essential. Because the mind, conscious and subconscious, is filled only with objects and the memories. God cannot be an ordinary object. And that's the reason why the mind has to be purified. What do we mean by purification of the mind? Why do we need to get into all this? The spiritual disciplines. It is to open the higher aspects of the mind. It is only through the higher aspects of the mind can one know the reality that is beyond the senses. People want to see God with this eyes and as an object. It can't be done. And this is what the yoga teaches. You've got to open the higher aspects, and that's the reason why he's saying you must churn the milk in the morning before sunrise to get the butter out. Okay. So you've got to churn the mind and extract that butter, the higher aspects, the finer. People think that this is the mind and this is the mind only. What? Your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. Oh, this has been dismissed long time back in India for thousands of years, that there are higher and higher and higher rarefied aspects of the mind that you're not even aware of. But it is part of you. It is you will have to open it up. Through concentration, through prayer, like Sri Ramakrishna says, to prayer and meditation, devotion. So this is the question, does God really exist? And Sri Ramakrishna says, God exists. And how can one see God? Now, to have just faith in does God exist? Yes, somebody say yes. Now you're going to have that faith. That's you can say, in dualism, you have this idea that if you're going to have faith in a God, in Advaita Vedanta, they will say, you've got to have faith in yourself. They will never bother about a God who's external in the sense of, I can see. Well, how do I prove God exists? They start with the idea that I exist. This is an indubitable fact in your consciousness. I exist. I know. They start from here. So it is the spiritual disciplines actually to have faith in this, the deeper aspects of I exist, I know. And then as it unravels, the inner side, the inner world unravels, it is from here, when this is open, that that faith and devotion, even in an external reality, keeps on increasing. This is very important. Otherwise, if you try to establish God through logic, there's another logician who will come and dismiss it off. There no intelligence, etc. will work. However intelligent, and people have been trying to establish God or de-establish God through their logic, through their reasoning. And the world has been fighting against all these various other things. It has been chaotic. You go to any library and see the literature that abounds. One trying to establish and one trying to delete the others. So then he said, eventually you will be blessed by the vision of God. Yeah. So this is what, so if there's a God, I must be able to see him, her. And this vision of God is like, it's not just an ordinary subject and object vision. It's a very unitive experience. It's ordinarily called vision of God. It's a very unitive experience. That experience is indubitable, firm, and all doubts and everything are removed once and for all. There are no doubts at all. So these are higher unitive experiences that a person gets. Then he says, Ram had been connected with the Brahmo Samaj, whose members never believed in God with a form. Now this is the problem. God with form and God without form. And both these camps have been at each other's throats. Which is it? This is it. Forms. Can you see God? Yeah. There are some days, yeah, you can see God. How does God look? Oh, she looks like, she's got 4 hands. Somebody will say, no, she's got 10 hands and all these things. And there are the other camps that says, God is formless. So then he was wondering, Ram was wondering, when Sri Ramakrishna said, you'll have that unitive experience, you'll have the vision of God. How do you get the vision of a formless God? What kind of experience is that? The master, as I say, read his mind and said, yes, God can be seen. Can God, whose creation is so beautiful and enchanting, be imperceptible? Then the next question, which always is the heart of every devotee's, you can say, desire. Is it possible to realize God in this life? You get what you want. Faith alone is the key to success. And then he sang a song. As is the man's meditation, so is his feeling of love. As is the man's feeling of love, so is his gain. And faith is at the root of all. If in the nectar lake of Mother Kali's feet, my mind remains immersed, of little use of worship, oblations, or sacrifice. And then he gives the well-known, you can say, example, the teaching. The more you advance in one direction, the more you leave behind the opposite direction. If you move 10 steps towards the east, you move 10 steps towards the west. That being said, again Ram brings up an objection. But one must have tangible proof. Unless we have direct experience of God, how can a weak and doubting mind have faith in his existence? Then Sri Ramakrishna gives his standard. A typhoid patient in a delirious state clamors to take gallons of water and heaps of rice. But the physician pays no heed to these entreaties, nor does he prescribe medicine at the patient's dictation. He knows what he is doing. So here it is. You start with an initial, you can say, conviction that has been implanted within you by a teacher or by your own experiences of life or by your karma or whatever. and then you begin. So the experience of God is a universal experience in the sense of people have experienced God for thousands and thousands of years in different cultures, in various ways. So it is not something that is only meant for a few handful or something at one point of time or something like that. No, it's not confined to any small group. It has been an experience that has been the cause of human evolution of morals and religions and traditions and spirituality. If you see down below, the history of humanity is a history of people who have realized God, who have seen God. And those experiences have moved societies and moved nations and moved histories. They underwrite everything. So this is actually, it's a universal experience all through. People of various, it's not confined to males, females and all. Both children have experienced, women, saints of all types, of all classes, of all cultures. They have seen it. Yes, I've seen it. And now there was a time when people used to laugh at this kind of mystical experiences. No, not anymore. These are authentic experiences. And they are so intense. They say, you see this world, it's so intense, isn't it? Tangible. You can see it here. You don't doubt it. The experience is tangible. A mystical experience is 100, 1,000-fold more tangible than this experience. And it leaves you without any kind of doubt. Everything has gone off. You have seen that. So Ram was very moved. He was impressed by Sri Ramakrishna's simple, convincing answers. And he was reluctant then to return home. So this became the beginning of a long series of associations. He used to come often and also send food and articles to Sri Ramakrishna. You know, however convincing an argument may be, when you are in close proximity or in touch with a saint or a sage or a holy person, when you are in that mood, you're in that ambience, you don't have any doubts and all. But when you leave that place, you go back to your mundane world. Like when you're meditating, you feel really good. And then when you finish meditation, you're doing all these things, you're assailed with some of the old questions, old doubts. And this is what happened with Chandra Datta. Okay. So, when a person is given a taste of something, in many cases, that the taste for the thing, the hankering for the thing keeps on increasing. So though there was a doubt and, Sri Ramakrishna had convinced him of these truths, that desire now to see and know God kept on increasing, along with that skepticism. So he's saying one night he dreamed that he took a bath in a familiar pond, and Sri Ramakrishna initiated him with a mantra and asked him to repeat it 100 times. When he woke up, his whole body was pulsating with bliss. And he saw that it was morning, he rushed to the Dakshineshwar and he told Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna said, one who receives divine blessings in a dream is sure to attain liberation. Now dreams, yeah. In Sri Ramakrishna says there is a class of aspirants who become perfected through seeing something in a dream, spiritual dream. It's called Swapna Siddha. Siddha is perfection, and Swapna is the dream. They get dream. And then there are others who get, due to the grace of God, Kripa Siddha. There are others who are called the Sadhan Siddha, those who attain perfection through spiritual disciplines. So there are some class of aspirants. They get something in a dream that's so powerful and it changes their whole life. And now that he had a dream, Sri Ramakrishna confirmed it and all these things. Yet, the old skepticism came in. Maybe it's just a dream. Maybe it's just a fancy. Who knows? Because you see, all his scientific training is also kicking in. And all his ideas of atheism and all his debates and discussions and all these things, they have a tendency to kick in. So one morning, he was with his friend at a busy street corner in Calcutta. And these doubts and the other convictions also are now, playing in this mind like light and shade. Then a tall person approached them. He says, "Why are you so anxious? Have patience." Ram was stunned. And he turned to see who this person, the person disappeared. His friend and Ram both heard this person say, "Why are you so impatient? Why are you so anxious? Have patience." They turned and the person had disappeared. And then Ram felt that like this was a kind of a direct message from divinity, from God. He later explained his experience there to Sri Ramakrishna. And Sri Ramakrishna smiled and said, "Yeah, you will see many such things as that." And this actually happens. Providentially, we say, or something like that. You are now, once you're put on the path, help comes in various ways. People say, "Oh, God has abandoned me," or something like that. "Oh, God does not hear your prayers," or "God is busy," or something like that. Never. You are kind of now helped by this divine realm in order to proceed. So, I think we can stop here for today. And if there are any questions, we can go for the questions. Of course, the next class also will be a continuation. Friday class will be a continuation of this. We have Swami Brahmatmananda, our dear Jim, who will be giving the Sunday talk.
So you had mentioned in meditation that spiritual experiences in life happens. So what is your advice for when you have those deep experiences and it's so tangible for a while and then it degrades, and even if it happens often, it still has that feeling of like going through back and forth through this threshold, which is maddening. How do you keep holding on to it?
Yes, the question is, when you get some experiences in meditation, and then after a while, after maybe days or even weeks, it kind of becomes diluted. that intensity, the intensity is lost. But sometimes you can recapitulate it, or in some other form with that same intensity or even less. But again, there's a again a dilution of things, dissipation. So you kind of move back and forth. This is the nature of spiritual experiences, all spiritual experiences, all this. The idea is to persist and to remember. Of course, you do remember, but vividly try to hold on to that original experience, and it will come back to you.
So when you hold on to that, that's kind of giving it name and form, which is the whole thing we're trying to get rid of. So is that still useful? Is that the thorn that we're using the other thorn to dig out?
Yes. The idea is, okay, when you're trying to remember or recapitulate the original experience, it's still name and form, and you have to get to the formless. They are both of the obverse and reverse of the same thing. It appears as name and form, but as you enter into that name and form, it melts away. Sri Ramakrishna uses the, you can say, illustration of ice. As ice forms, and then that same ice melts away. Water has no form. It takes a form, whatever container you put in. So, but ice has it. So don't discard the idea that this will not lead me to the formless. The forms melt away into the formless. In fact, Sri Ramakrishna says, the cooling influence of bhakti makes the formless take a form. So it is the same reality. And then Sri Ramakrishna also says, the reality, God, is beyond forms and even beyond formlessness. So even if you get into the formless aspect, oh, I've reached, well, you've got to go even beyond the concept of formlessness. So hold on to that, because an experience is an experience, a spiritual experience, which is got in deep meditation or in an intense spiritual experience, in a dream also. Hold on to that, and that will lead you further and further, deeper and deeper within you, inside. And as it leads you deeper and deeper, there is an aspect we all know. We all have names and forms, all of us, everything. Yet there is an abstract aspect of you, within you, which is formless. That's why the Upanishad says, Dve vava brahmano rupe. Brahman has two forms. Murta cha murta. Form and formless. Stita, astita. And then it's what? It is stationary and non-stationary. So an aspect of formlessness is already within all of us, as well as the aspect of forms. Yeah. You see, you try to picturize yourself in an abstract way. You can. And yet you have a name and you have a form. So there are these two aspects in every personality. Every personality. So there is a higher aspect which is formless, and the other aspect which is, so but both are part of you. So your mental makeup already has this. So even when you experience something which is with form, know that there is an aspect of formlessness within that same thing. Okay? Yeah, there's an abstract aspect, formless aspect of me. Yes. Think about it deeply. And that's why you feel, because of that abstract, that you can say subtle aspect of it, you feel that you will not die. Death, even the body dies, I will not die. Something that transcends death, something that transcends name and form. You notice it? There's a fear of death. At the same time, oh, I will not die. So one is the mortal aspect, one is the immortal aspect. And why? This is Maya. We have an easy way to explain things, which of course puts even more bigger explanation. So it makes the impossible possible and the possible impossible. The definition of, the simple definition of Maya. Okay. So this is what it is. So there is always that, you can say. So what you generally do is to keep focusing on that original experience. That is actually never lost. It's never lost. It's like a seed. It will give rise to further plants and further seeds. It's never lost. One original experience is always, in every devotee's life, and I've spoken to hundreds of devotees, there's one solid experience that has started the whole thing. It worked subconsciously. At times it has popped up, gone down again. So one experience will lead you to, it will lead you to further experiences. It will never die off. Your memories and all these small things might die off. You might forget all these things. Those things will never. They are, as I say, imperishable. Okay? Think. So we can stop here for today. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.